Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Soss number 101. This is their typical 101 hinge in a US 4 finish. The part number you might see is a 101C US 4, and the C simply means that they're carded, and as a result, they're generally only sold in multiples of 2. The price is per hinge, but you need to order 2, 4, 6, 8, whatever the case is, because they're carded down to a piece of cardboard. The Soss number 101 is a series of their invisible style hinges from small size, which the 101 certainly occupies the smaller end of the spectrum, all the way up to the very large 220 size hinge. And I'm quite partial to Soss hinges, and in my opinion, they're not used nearly enough. The reasoning is, well, they're elegant, they're concealed, you don't see them at all, which is nice aesthetically. From a functional perspective, I like them a lot because they're capable of handling extraordinary weights. The logic of why you would want something that will handle significantly greater weight than a standard hinge is obvious. When you go into a door in a restaurant, the bathroom door, if you ever notice that top hinge, it fatigues. After about 5 years of fairly constant use, that door hinge is going to fatigue to a point where the knuckles grind, wears away a large pattern between the two of them, a gap between them. The door will then start to move down, hit the top of the frame. You see it, where you see it all the time are in restaurant, chain coffee shops. That top of the door is constantly hitting the frame, and it's because that hinge is let go a little bit. It's worn down. Soss hinges, while it's certainly more expensive to prep a door and certainly a steel frame for them, you're going to be able to enjoy a significantly greater, healthier operating door as a result. There is, speaking of the weight of the unit, there is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page. And on that page, you can pull up what they call a nomograph. A nomograph is something represented by a two-dimensional, two-axis sort of chart that allows you to plot specific known values so that you can derive the answer. There is a link on that manufacturer's page where you can pull up the usage chart or nomograph. Once you know the door width and you know the door weight, once you input those two variables, you can then extend your line to see exactly what sort of hinge and quantity of those hinges are required. And what's interesting about it is, while the door width in inches, that axis is not that interesting, but the door weight in pounds is interesting because it tops out at 500. That's a seriously heavy door. That would be something that would be incredibly large, or perhaps lead-lined, or some sort of specially designed that incorporates glass, architectural metals, things of that nature, where the door gets incredibly heavy, whereas a typical 3070 solid core birch door might be, just for argument's sake, 7 pounds a foot. And it's not even that. It's probably closer to 6 or 6.5. But just say 7 pounds. 3 times 7 is 21 times 7. That's the weight of the door, 147 pounds, which is far more than they actually weigh. But the top hinge really takes a beating in those installations where Soss is going to handle it without skipping a beat, so to speak. So that nomograph is incredibly, well, A, helpful, and B, very interesting to be able to see. I have either read, or I have been told, or I have come into the understanding, there is some published data somewhere from Soss that says, I may have called them one time and said, what's the maximum load rating on these hinges? They said, just keep adding hinges. So it's the design of the hinge that makes it substantial. Now with a 101, obviously weight is not primary concern. Probably what's going to be the primary concern is how thick is the door, and is your hinge going to fit into the opening. Now the only thing actually that is of concern, and just because I thought of it, if you're using this as, let's say, a 218 hinge, a large hinge for a door, that's going to be full size. If you're going to have additional hardware installed, and really namely only an overhead doorstop, overhead holder, you have to take that into account, because an interesting side effect of the Soss hinge, you'll see the pin right here. That pin right here, that's the vertical axis of pivoting. That's the center point around which the door rotates. With a hinge, that pin is in a fixed vertical position. When I rotate, and this is what the door would look like at 90 degrees open, if I rotate that, you can see that the pin travels. It floats on an arc through its opening and closing cycle. You have to order additional hardware with the understanding, when you're ordering that hardware, that you are hanging the door on Soss hinges, so that the manufacturer of the item, overhead stops and holders is really what comes to mind. That's the only thing. Door closers, I've never had to really template a door closer for a floating pivot point like this, but overhead stops need to be manufactured specifically for it. Now, back to the 101 hinge and its sister products. This is going to include screws, typical wood screws. They look like they're about a number 6 by 1 inch flathead Phillips drive. There is a, below this video in the extended description, pardon me, they're number 5 by 3/4 screw size, and they give you the pilot hole for soft and hardwoods. They give you a dimensional drawing showing the A through H dimensions, which are very important to know exactly where everything has to lay out. The important first thing to know is the A dimension. How wide is it? It's 3/8 of an inch wide. And then the next important thing to know when you're installing these is what the D dimension would be when the doors are parallel. What's the space, the inside space between the two doors? And that D dimension is 7/64 of an inch. So as you're considering a 101 hinge, you should look at that drawing, do a reality check on the dimensions. Then review the link to the what we call the cut sheet, and it's a technical drawing of the hinge. It shows how it has to be installed. Now, installation of these hinges is quite simple and straightforward, quite frankly. You're going to need a bit, obviously, that's going to have a diameter of the face of this, which we've already established at 3/8 of an inch. That is called out on the template. You're going to need, it's 3/8 of an inch. The body is also 3/8. So really what you're going to do to mortise these, and by the way, we have templates available for most Soss hinges. They're already manufactured, ready to be tacked onto the edge of a door. You're going to take your router with that 3/8 bit, and you're going to do what would be called the body prep. And the body prep is really this portion down here. Okay, from here down and over. You're going to lift your router bit up, reset it, and then do your plate prep, which will give you the nice long preparation. Radius corners means there's no squaring that's going to have to be accomplished. So you're going to mark your centerline location. You're going to kick it over by the dimension that is called out on the cut sheet of 3/32 of an inch from the edge of the outside, or pardon me, yeah, what would be the outside edge to where the hinge plate starts, okay, and mortise your prep. And you're going to duplicate that per the dimensions on the other side of the hinge as well, and it's good. Soss hinges are fantastic. They're work to install, and they can be more costly to prep for. Again, like a hollow metal frame. But if you're doing a door that is going to be outrageously heavy, you know, in my opinion, anything above 150 pounds gets to where you should really start to consider. Well, if you have an 8-foot door, you're going with 4 hinges. But if you get into that 200-pound range on regular stuff, get away from hinges. Go to pivots or go to Soss, because it's just too heavy for standard hinges. You might go with a taller hinge, a heavier hinge, etc. Just the knuckle principle of hinges is, in my opinion, not appropriate for things on the heavier range, and that's where Soss can come in and help as well. Available in all of the common finishes, and even uncommon finishes can be manufactured. You want nickel or you want black, they'll, enough lead time and they will manufacture them. There is below this video a link to another video, which is from the Universal Hinge Company, known as Soss, going an overview of how to install them. But if you follow the templating and you've got your router and your template set up, and you follow the dimensional properties, and you do the body, and you come back up and do the plate, you're in real good shape. It's really, in my opinion, the only sort of education that you need. And if you own a router, then this is not outside of your realm of capability. If you have any questions on the Soss 101 cabinet hinge or any other Soss product, and you can review the entire Soss product line from the link below this video to the manufacturer's page and pull up all things Soss hinge related, as we had referred to earlier, feel free to do that. And there's actually a couple of additional videos I've just noticed that have been added. Thank you very much.